I'm sitting here this morning, and the house is so quiet I can hear the clock ticking in the kitchen. That never used to bother me. Now it sounds like a metronome counting down something I can't name. I turned 105 last month. People keep asking me what the secret is. How did I live so long? What's the key to a good life? They want some formula they can write down and follow. But here's what I didn't understand until just a few years ago. There is no secret, there's just time. And time teaches you things whether you want to learn them or not. I spent most of my life believing I was building something permanent. My career as a carpenter, the house I built with my own hands, the family I raised. I thought these things would last. I thought they mattered in the way I believed they mattered. When I was 40, 50, 60 years old, I measured my worth by what I could point to and say, that's mine. I built that, I earned that, I made that happen. Now I look around this house and most of the furniture is different. My children sold the old pieces when I moved in with my daughter. The walls have different pictures now. Even the kitchen table where I ate breakfast for 30 years is gone. At first this bothered me. Where did my life go? But then something changed in how I saw it. I realized I had been thinking about it all wrong. I thought the point was to leave marks on the world, to build things that would outlast me. But that's not what happened. What happened is the world left marks on me. Every job I worked, every person I loved, every morning I woke up and decided to keep going. That all got written into who I became. And that's still here, that's still with me. I remember when my wife died 15 years ago. We had been married for 62 years. I thought I would die from the grief. I couldn't understand how the world kept moving when the most important person in mine was gone. I used to lie awake at night and think about all the things we never got to do. The trips we planned but never took. The conversations we meant to have but ran out of time for. I tortured myself with regret. But somewhere in those dark months, I started remembering differently. Instead of thinking about what we didn't do, I started thinking about what we did. The way she hummed while doing dishes. How she always fell asleep first and I would listen to her breathing. The thousand small moments that made up our life together. I realized I had been looking at love wrong. I thought love was about holding on, keeping someone with you, making sure they never left. But love isn't about possession. Love is about recognition. It's about seeing someone clearly and being seen clearly in return. My wife is gone, but the love is still here. It changed form, but it didn't disappear. I can feel it when I make coffee in the morning the way she taught me, when I fold laundry the way she showed me, when I remember her laugh. This took me 95 years to understand that love doesn't require the other person to still be breathing. I think about my father a lot these days. He died when I was 58. I thought I was too old to miss my father the way a child misses their parent. But I was wrong about that too. He worked in the steel mills his whole life, came home every day covered in soot and sweat. I used to be embarrassed by his hands. They were permanently stained black under the nails, rough and scarred from the work. When I became a carpenter, I started to understand what those hands meant, the sacrifice in them, the love in them. Every day he went to work so I could have what I needed, so I could go to school, so I could have choices he never had. Now my hands look like his did. Different work, same wear. I understand now that this is how love travels through families. Through the willingness to do hard things for people who won't appreciate it until much later. I wish I had told him I understood before he died. But maybe that's not how it works. Maybe each generation has to discover these things for themselves. People ask me if I have regrets. Of course I do, but they're not the regrets I expected to have. I don't regret the risks I didn't take or the adventures I missed. I don't regret not making more money or achieving more success. What I regret is how long it took me to pay attention. I spent so many years rushing, always focused on what came next, the next project, the next goal, the next thing I needed to accomplish. I missed so much of what was right in front of me. I remember walking to work every morning for 25 years. Same route, same time. But I couldn't tell you what the trees looked like or how the light changed with the seasons. I was always thinking about something else. Now I can barely walk to the end of the driveway, but I notice everything. The way the morning light hits the fence, how different birds have different songs, the smell of rain before it arrives. This seems backward to me. When you have all the time in the world, you don't notice it passing. When you have almost no time left, every moment feels significant. Maybe that's what wisdom is. Not knowing more things, but paying attention to the things you already know matter. I think about death every day now, not in a morbid way, more like acknowledging a fact. The way you might think about winter coming when you see the leaves starting to change. When I was younger, I was terrified of dying. I thought it meant everything I was would just stop, disappear, like turning off a light. But now I think death might be more like sleep. You don't cease to exist when you sleep, you just exist differently. Maybe death is like that, a different way of being that we can't understand from this side of it. I'm not afraid anymore, not of dying anyway. What I'm afraid of is forgetting, not being able to remember my wife's voice or my children when they were small, losing the details that make up who I am. But then I remember that forgetting is part of life too. Maybe it's a kindness. Maybe we're not supposed to carry everything with us forever. What I do want to remember, what I try to hold on to, is how it felt to love people. The specific weight of my son when he fell asleep on my chest when he was 3. The sound of my daughter practicing piano in the next room. The way my wife's hand felt in mine when we were both young and thought we had forever. These aren't stories I can tell someone else. They're not lessons or advice. They're just what remains when everything else falls away. I used to think the point of living was to accomplish something, to leave a mark, to matter in some measurable way, but I don't think that anymore. I think the point is simpler than that. The point is to pay attention, to love the people in front of you, to notice what you're given. To be grateful for the gift of being conscious in this strange and beautiful world, even if only for a little while. That's what I didn't understand until I was 105. Life isn't a problem to solve or a game to win. It's just something that happens to you, and your job is to show up for it. To be present for your own experience, to let it change you. I don't know how much longer I have. Could be days, could be years. But I'm not worried about it anymore. I've learned what I needed to learn. I've loved who I needed to love. I've paid attention as best I could. The rest is just details.